If you're watching this video, then like me, you probably really enjoy the sound, the brutality, and the aggression of a good V8 engine. Whether it's from a supercar or an American muscle car, whatever it is, V8s often sound incredible. But they also often cost quite a bit of money. So today I'm going to be talking about 10 cheap and pretty fast V8s that you can buy for under £10,000. What's crazy, I did this video back like 3 years ago now in 2019 for under £5,000, and at that time there was plenty of options available under that price range. Today, it is far more difficult. With the price bubble, inflation, all that kind of stuff, £10,000 is a roundabout where you can look at to get some good V8s. So don't forget I'm in the UK, which means prices in other countries may differ, and whether you buy any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance, road tax, all that good stuff is important to remember. Let me know what your favourite sounding V8 of all time is in the comments down below. At the end of the video, I'll let you know what my one is. Hit like if you enjoyed this video as well. If I get 1,000 likes, I'll do maybe a V10 video, and then a V12, and then maybe even a V6 video. We'll see how it goes. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Our first V8 engine monster in this video comes in the form of the Range Rover Sport, which is a 4.2 litre supercharged example to be exact, that makes 385 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 7.2 seconds. The platform this SUV sits on was designed to make the car useful both on and off the road, with a key focus on cornering, which was made better by a nice rigid monocoque chassis and the robustness of a separate chassis design, which was adapted from the 2004 Land Rover Discovery 3, which is a bit more off-roady. It's also got active anti-roll bars to make cornering even better. Ultimately, it is a bit of a Chelsea wagon, and the more luxury focused interior reflects that, using nice leather throughout, and from my personal experience of being in one, it feels very much like you're sitting in a comfy armchair, at least in the front two seats. These start at around £5,000 at the bottom end, and 10k will get you a 2005 model with around 80k on it. Gearboxes and the air suspension are both known to be a bit problematic, but of the bunch of engines available with these, the 4.2 litre supercharged V8 appears to have the fewest common problems. Next up is one of the cars that saved the Porsche brand and helped it to become the manufacturer it is today, the Porsche Cayenne, with its 4.5 litre V8 engine that makes 340 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds. Not bad at all for a car of its size. The Cayenne also came with a 4.8 litre V8, but it's becoming more difficult to get a hold of them for under 10 grand. I never thought it was a particularly good looking car on release, but it's definitely starting to come into its own, and the interior has always been a beautiful place to be, with some amazing specs like the yachting blue leather that looks unreal. It was a great idea on release by Porsche, as though some purists didn't like that the traditional sports car manufacturer was making SUVs all of a sudden, it did gain a massive market share and rescue Porsche from the brink of failure. Maybe the new Lotus SUV will do the same for them. These are listed from around £6,000, and 10 grand will grab you a 2005 example with around 70,000 miles on the clock. On reliability, the majority of issues are related to the electricals, plus some owners have complained about maintenance and repair costs being pretty hefty, but it is a Porsche, so what can you really expect? Next up we have a car that I actually really like, but you don't see around much, the Volvo S80 with its 4.4 litre V8 that makes 310 brake horsepower, getting it from 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds. It's a very nice luxury saloon, but a far more simplistic one from some of the other cars that come later on this list, in keeping with how Volvo like to design its cars. It comes from the era where Volvo and Ford were sharing engines and platforms, and in this case the platform is the same as the third generation Mondeos, though I personally don't think you'd be able to tell visually, as they are wildly different, plus the sound of that V8 is a telling enough sign. These are hard to come by, as I mentioned, but are available for under £10,000 and sometimes under 5k, as I've shown in previous videos. You'll be looking at a 2005 example with around 70,000 miles on the clock for that kind of money. There are some known problems, mostly to do with leaks that cause a loss of power steering or coolant, and some have had problems with their handbrakes. All in though, these seem to be able to go well over 200,000 miles in many cases. In 7th is the R230 Mercedes SL500, an already classic looking sports car in my opinion, with its 5 litre V8 engine that produces 306 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 6.1 seconds. I've mentioned this car in a video a while back about how they'll likely become classics in the future at least, and I'd say it's a pretty safe bet, given every SL before it has gained some kind of classic status. The only thing that could screw that bet over is whatever happens with combustion engined cars, and if the world decides to switch to other power sources. It's a nice car in terms of looks on the exterior and isn't too dissimilar aesthetically to a baby McLaren SLR, as the two share similar design principles. The hardtop convertible roof is another bonus, so you can cruise with the top down on sunny days without having to maintain a soft top roof through the colder and rainier months. These are available from around the £7,000 mark, and 10k will get you a 2005 model with 50k on the clock. Build quality, suspension and electrics are where most questions are raised in relation to these, but the engines are known to be pretty good, which is always a bonus. Taking 6th is a rogue one, the Lexus LS600h, another luxury car with its hybrid 5-litre V8 setup that produces 439 brake horsepower, which will get it from 0 to 60 in 6.1 seconds. This is the most powerful car on the list, and probably also the biggest oxymoron, attaching an eco-friendly electric motor to a guzzling V8 engine, but whatever. I've spoken about this car recently, and if you've watched my video on cheap luxury cars under 10 grand, you know this is the top of the line luxury car for Lexus, which is already the luxury sister brand of Toyota. The car is known to be supremely comfortable and refined on the interior too, with amazing technology for its time, plus it's over 2.5 meters long. The V8 engine produces 388 brake horsepower of its own, and the electric motor produces 221 horsepower, but when you combine the two, the actual power to the wheels is more like 439 brake horsepower. Pretty sick either way. That electric motor has more than quadruple the power of my Polo. These are listed from around the £7,000 mark, and you'll get a 2007 model with around 60,000 miles on it for 10 grand. The main problem with these is the battery, which can be expensive to replace, but outside of that, it's pretty good. So I hope you guys are enjoying this video. If you are, make sure you hit the like button. As I said, 1,000 likes and I'll do a V10 video of this instead. And don't forget to comment down below as well, what is your personal favourite V8 engined car? This is the only diesel on the list, the VW Touareg, and though of course diesels are not known to have a great sound, a diesel V8 is a bit of a tractor, hence it's quick enough to get into the top 5 on this list. That 4.2 litre TDI V8 makes 335 brake horsepower, which takes from 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds. This is the second generation Touareg, and you might remember the first gen having a much cooler V10 example, which I'm sure will appear in another video one day in the future. This second gen is a better looking example in my opinion though, and definitely more modern, with features you might expect in a more up-to-date family SUV. In R-Line spec, it looks a little more aggressive too, and the interior, though typically VW, is actually quite nice. Now, being the newest car on the list, you'll only just about get one for the 10k limit on this video, and it will be high mileage, but a pretty cool car to own nonetheless. Clogged diesel, particulate filters, and oil leaks are the two main problems I could find, as well as the fuel pump failing. Taking 4th on the list is a car that I've featured a couple of times before, the Jaguar S-Type R, which I very highly rate for just how rapid it is. On release, it was the fastest production saloon car in the world, which makes sense considering its 4.2 litre supercharged V8 engine produces 400 brake horsepower, which will take it from 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds. It was designed to hark back to classic Jags like the Mark II, and is definitely a sleeper in my books, given its sporty features are pretty understated, and if you take the limiter off, it will do 191 miles per hour, which is just ridiculous. A bit of tuning and you've easily got yourself a 200 miles per hour car for under 10 grand. You can spot some slight differences from the standard car though, like the 18-inch alloys and the R badging, but I wouldn't say it's by any means obvious in its performance. You'll need at least 6k to get into one of these, and 10k will get you a 2006 model with around 70,000 miles on it. These require a lot of preventative maintenance, but if this has been done throughout the car's life, it should be reliable, according to owners on forums. Do inspect for rust though if you're after one of these. Next up is my favourite Ferrari engine saloon car, available for under £10,000, which I know is a pretty limited category, but that's what makes the 5th generation Maserati Quattroporte so special. That engine is a 4.2 litre V8 that produces 394 brake horsepower, which will get it from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. It's not only pretty quick, it's focused on being at least a little bit luxurious, with a really nice interior that is classically Italian. The exterior is pretty too, being designed by Pininfarina and more specifically Ken Okayama, the same man who designed my all-time favourite car, the Enzo. But back to the engine, which really is the party piece of this car. It's been used in a bunch of other cars in different guises, including the Ferrari F430, California and 458. These are slowly going up in price, and £10,000 is about what you need to get into one of these, with around 50,000 miles on the clock. Reliability isn't amazing, but it isn't horrendous. Variators are known to be the main source of trouble, and there are some electrical problems to be aware of, plus the premium on servicing a Maserati. Just missing out on the top spot, we have the BMW 650i, which is a pretty aggressive 4.8 litre V8 engine producing 361 1 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.9 seconds. This is the E63 generation, and it is a bit Marmite in terms of its looks, as some people adore the bangle butt on it, while others think it's a bit much. I am of course referring to the rear end, as though this car wasn't designed by Chris Bangle, the Z9 concept car it was based off of was, and it kept that pretty iconic rear end. The car is effectively the coupe and convertible equivalent of the E65 series generation, and it does have some cool features like the carbon reinforced plastic boot and front wings, plus aluminium doors and bonnet to try and reduce the weight on what is otherwise a massive car. These start at around the £5,000 mark, and for double that you'll be looking at a 2007 model with around 70,000 miles on it. Unfortunately, that V8 is known to be problematic, particularly around leaking seals, which can cause the death of the alternator. The valve stem seals are also known to be a pain. Taking the top spot is probably my favourite car on the list, the Audi RS4, which is very hard to come by for under 10 grand, but it is possible, particularly in the slightly less desirable convertible spec, though of course you will be looking at high mileage. It comes with a 4.2 litre V8 engine that makes 414 brake horsepower, which takes it to 60 in 4.7 seconds. Pretty mental speeds for a car that sits around the 10k range. This B7 RS4 is one of my favourite looking generations and was pretty revolutionary for RS badged cars, given it came as a saloon, a cab, and then also the estate, whereas the RS2 and RS4s had only come as that estate. Of course, the estate is the one that everyone wants, but don't sleep on the other two, as I would possibly cause a bit of a ruckus by saying the cab is actually the best looking, but of course only with the top down. With the top up, I can agree it is a bit dead looking. Everything about this car is built to be beastie. The suspension and brakes are uprated, the wheelbase is different to the standard car too, hence the nice big wheel arches, and it's even managed a Nürburgring lap time of 8 minutes and 4 seconds, which is pretty quick. The engine is known to be incredibly reliable, as it was built to near racing levels of perfection and performance, but carbon buildup has been known on cars that have been used in the city mostly. Coil pack failure is also known, and there are a few other small issues around the suspension setup. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new here. My personal favourite sounding V8 engined car, if we're ignoring the F1 cars of the V8 era, which obviously sounded amazing, probably a Mercedes C63 AMG, the naturally aspirated one. I think it sounds absolutely beautiful. Massive thanks to the patrons as always for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.